Some tragic news in the world of the NFL as legendary Cleveland Browns and star NFL quarterback running back Jim Brown passed away today. Jim Brown was an instrumental part of the NFL landscape throughout the 1950s and 60s. As reported by the Bill Lang news agency, Jim Brown passed away. His leadership skills are second to none. But anyway, Brown was born in Georgia to a professional boxer and a homemaker. At secondary school, he earned 13 school letters playing football, lacrosse, baseball, basketball, and track. He actually had a record, a Long Island record for points per game for a basketball team, which was actually surpassed by future Boston Red Sox player Carlos Stremski. Brown went to Syracuse, which wasn't really much on football talent, but he still was fantastic. His senior year was one of the best around. He took 5th in the Heisman Trophy, despite the fact that he really deserved to win the Heisman and not Paul Hornung. He was a consensus first-team All-American. He had 6 rushing touchdowns in one game, despite the fact that it was against Colgate, which is not an FBS school. But still, that's amazing. And he actually scored 6 touchdowns and was the kicker and kicked 7 extra points. So he had 36 points through the touchdowns and 7 extra points for 43 points. Then in the Cotton Bowl, he ran for 132 yards, scoring 3 touchdowns. Unfortunately, his extra point block, one was blocked as Texas Christian did win the Cotton Bowl. But still, on a national stage like the Cotton Bowl, he was fantastic. But it wasn't just football. He was fantastic for Syracuse. People forget that. He was a decent lacrosse player. People said that Jim Brown's lacrosse efforts were just as good as his college football exploits with Syracuse. He actually scored 43 goals in 10 games as a senior in lacrosse. Brown was so dominant that lacrosse rules were changed, requiring a lacrosse player to keep their stick in constant motion while carrying the ball instead of holding it close to his body like Jim Brown would. He was a running back for Syracuse, and he did all that. But right now there's no rule in lacrosse that says you can do that. But anyway, he's in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame. It was like he could have been a lacrosse style legend if he played for lacrosse. He actually was a second lieutenant and actually was a member of the U.S. Army Reserve for 4 years. He was discharged with the rank of captain. So that's just amazing. The 1957 NFL draft happened, and Jim Brown went 6th overall to Cleveland. Teams that could have had him were Green Bay, the Rams, San Fran, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh. However, it must be said that Green Bay's 2 picks of Paul Hornung and Ron Kramer actually were big picks, while the Niners had a decent quarterback with John Brody, and Pittsburgh drafted Len Dawson, although he would do better things for Kansas City. The Rams missed out, going with John Arnett, a halfback from USC. But, Jim Brown was the 3rd running back taken after Hornung and Arnett. I wonder if the Rams really regretted that miss. But still, he put up 237 yards rushing, which was an NFL single-game record, never mind a rookie record. That was for 14 years. The rookie record would last for 4 decades. That's just how amazing. And yes, it was against the Rams, ironic enough. He put up 1,500 rushing yards in 1958, breaking the NFL record set by Steve Van Buren. In his MVP season, he had 17 touchdowns, more than double second place, which was Ray Berry of the Colts. And he was a receiver. Strangely enough, in 9 years in the NFL, he departed the league's as the league's record holder for a single season in career rushing yards. It took a long time before the 12,312 rushing yards were surpassed, and that was by Walter Payton in 1984. Remember, serves to be right. And the rushing record was set by OJ in 1973 with 2,003 yards. He was just iconic. 100 rushing touchdowns, the first player to do so. His touchdown record would not be touched until 1994 by Jerry Rice. Imagine that. And he put up 100 touchdowns in 93 games, which was the record before LT LaDainian Tomlinson did it in 89 career games. But still, he was an icon. Every season he played, he was in the Pro Bowl. And the funny thing is, he never play football past the age of 29. What would have been if he stayed in football? He led the NFL rushing 8 times. That's still an NFL record to this day. He still has the Cleveland record for rushing yards with 1,863 yards. The oldest franchise record for any of the 32 franchises. Brown abruptly retired in 1966, focusing on his acting career and all of that. Although Jim Brown did have a good acting career, like in the 30 dozen, like what might have been. So anyway, he still won an NFL title with Cleveland in 1964, the last time Cleveland won an NFL/major championship. So yeah, he was in the 30 dozen, in Ice Station Zebra. He was the leading man in like Grasshopper and Take a Hard Ride. But yeah, he was an actor. He was in Mars Attacks. And strangely enough, Jim Brown actually posed for Playgirl magazine in the nude in 1974, which was weird. And for a little bit, he was color analyst on CBS NFL games in 1978, teaming with the great Finn Scully and George Allen. Jim Brown was just amazing and all of that. He actually did a lot for the African American community in the civil rights movement, which was just amazing what he could do. The accolades and doing a lot of things for the rights of black athletes, and making black athletes people know that black athletes were good. He was the trailblazer for such runners as Gale Sayers, O.J. Simpson, Franco Harris, Walter Payton, and Emmitt Smith. He did a lot for the civil rights movement, as well as other stuff too. I mean, if you think about it, he actually was the first black televised boxing announcer when he announced the Ernie Terrell-George Chuvalo fight. It was just amazing. In fact, Jim Brown, for the first 6 UFCs, this is the funny fact, UFCs 1 to 6, he was actually on UFC 1 to 6 as a color commentator for UFC, which was shocking. I mean, Jim Brown of all people. There was a movie famously directed by Spike Lee in 2002 called Jim Brown All-American, which was a retrospective on his career and personal life. I recommend seeing that and all of that. Anyway, Jim Brown is an icon for the Cleveland Browns and a lot of things. Yes, he did have some personal life and legal issues that I don't want to say anything about. But his sporting accolades are great. I mean, despite him not really having many NFL records anymore because of him only being around for 9 years instead of double digits like many of the great athletes, he still is an icon. He's a great player for both college football with Syracuse and pro football with Cleveland. And let's not forget his lacrosse style stuff too. Jim Brown was actually named the greatest college football player of all time by ESPN when